Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, we welcome a new regular to the 21 Hats podcast crew, Sarah Segal, founder and CEO of Segal Communications, a public relations firm based in San Francisco. First, Sarah tells Jay Goltz and Liz Picarazzi how she built her firm. Then, Jay and Liz ask Sarah all of their questions about public relations. How much outreach should they do themselves? Should they hire a PR specialist or a full-service agency? Should they approach journalists directly or through a publicist? And most important, how much should it all cost? Plus, why Sarah's still figuring out how to attract new business. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which Inc. magazine recently named the best newsletter for business owners, and which you can subscribe to at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Jay Goltz, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, Artist Frame Service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. Liz Picarazzi, who is CEO of City Bin, which is based in Brooklyn, New York, and makes trash enclosures and package bins. And of course, Sarah Segal, founder and CEO of Segal Communications. The episode is titled, I Think You Need a PR Firm. Welcome, Jay, Liz, and especially Sarah, the newest member of our 21 Hats podcast team. It's great to have you all here. Sarah, we want to hear a little bit about your journey, how you got to this point. Let me start by asking, if I'm not mistaken, you used to do something noble with your life. Weren't you once a journalist?
Yes, I was a journalist for the first half of my career. I worked behind the scenes for NBC and CBS and even Fox News Channel in New York City in the 90s and 2000s before deciding that I would be a TV reporter and work in small stations across New York and across California before moving to the dark side, which is what I do now, which is public relations.
Not really the dark side.
Well, not really. No, it's just kind of a running joke among people that leave journalism that PR is the unvirtuous side of the coin.
What a way to make a living.
Much more affordable lifestyle. Yes, absolutely. And to give you a little segue on that, basically, what happened was I was a reporter at a local television station in San Francisco called Cron 4. And I was a general assignment reporter. I was a VJ, meaning that I shot, edited, and produced all of my own work in the field. I stood in front of burning buildings. I covered floods. I covered shootings. I covered all the bleeds it leads news. There was a story that really kind of made me wake up one morning and say, you know what? I think I need to change of pace. I can't really deal with the blood and gore anymore. I had small children at the time and needed to do something a little bit different. I had been in contact with many public relations folks throughout my career and figured I'd give it a shot. And so that's how I ended up in PR.
You first took a job with a PR firm?
No, I actually took a job with a e-commerce company. It was a husband and wife team. And 2 to 3 days a week, I would go and I'd work in their warehouse doing PR. She was a former attorney that just knew how to do PR and supported that side of the business and taught me everything that she knew. And so I spent a good year or so with them before moving in-house for a company called Cafe Press, which was a big print-on-demand company for T-shirts.
And how did you come to own your own firm?
Well, after Cafe Press closed their California offices, I bounced around to a couple different agencies, and I was downsized from my one agency. when I was downsized, I took another job with a company that didn't really work out. We spoke different languages. And I left that job. And at the time, a friend of mine was working at a marketing agency, and he said, "Hey, listen, I really need someone to do PR for this new boutique hotel we're opening up in Ketchum, Idaho. Would you be able to do it?" And I was like, I suffer from imposter syndrome. And I was like, "Why would you want me to do it?" He's like, "Well, because you know how to do it." He had been the person that hired me initially at Cafe Press. And so I went ahead and did that. And my friend at the time was disliking her position at a large PR agency, called me up and said, "Hey, you want to hang your shingle with me?" And so I started an agency with her because of her. I don't know that I would have done it myself, although I'm very happy that I did.
So you were partners?
I was partners. My company was originally Voorhees Segal. Victoria Voorhees was my partner. And for the first couple of years, we were just work spouses, and did everything together. But she had decided to leave the company at the end of our second year. She just had to prioritize having more of a stable paycheck because, as you know, being an entrepreneur and starting your own agency, you're going to be the last people that are paid. And so she left, and it took a lot out of me, but I was like, you know what, I can do this. So
where are you today? How big is the firm?
Well, we have about 6 you're going to ask me numbers, and I'm very bad at this, but we have 6 full-time people. We just hired another person. She starts next Thursday. We're very excited. And then we have a handful of freelancers and consultants that we work with, because there are a lot of people that don't want to work full-time, and they're just happy to, do the work that we need and then disappear until a new project comes up.
And your revenues?
My revenues. So last year we made $1 million. And at the end of the year, I was like, yeah, this is great. We're doing really well. I'm going to put my stamp on, making 2 million this year.
Wait, you grossed $1 million. You didn't make $1 million. I assume
No, we grossed. Yeah.
Gross. Okay.
And do you focus in any particular type of client? Do you have a specialty?
That's actually a sore subject for me.
How so?
Every marketing guru will tell you the same thing. They say, well, you need to really, figure out what your specialty is, and then, hang your hat on that specialty, and then grow your business based on that specialty. And usually it's like food and beverage or hospitality or tech or consumer tech. I have failed at doing that. Part of the reason is I really have just a natural curiosity about so many verticals that we will do everything from a donut shop to a high-tech product in the hospitality technology space. So my feeling is, as long as I'm interested in it and I'm curious about it naturally, we'll do a really great job.
I don't think I knew there was a hospitality technology space.
Oh, there is. I'll tell you all about it.
Well, give me an example.
So one of my clients is a company called Relay. And basically they have a really interesting story, because they ended up pivoting. They have basically transformed, they're replacing the walkie-talkie. If you think about when you go into a hotel or an event center or, a large warehouse, the way that most companies have their employees that are on the front line communicate are through walkie-talkies. They can't walk around with a laptop up and a screen in front of them. So they invented a product that essentially replaces that, but it's a much smarter product because it's voice operated and it's connected to the cloud. And what was interesting is they originally started out as an alternative phone for kids because it didn't have a screen. But then they started having all of these hotels like place orders for 50 or more of their product. And so they had to make not a pivot, but I think it just took a different path. That's an example of hospitality technology.
So how long have you been on your own without the partner?
I was literally on my own for like 3 weeks. And then I got a call from this contact of mine who had kind of played the role as of an advisor to me in growing a business, and said, I saw that your business partner left. We'd be interested in buying you because we run a crisis communications and corporate communications shop. And we would like to find someone who can do just regular PR and social for our clients. So we're not losing opportunity with our current clients because they would have people come to them for crises. And those same clients would say, oh, you're really great. Can you do our regular PR too? And it wasn't their core competency. So it took this was in the middle of the pandemic. So it took about a year for it to happen. I was acquired officially last year.
And why did you decide to sell?
So I'm sure you guys can feel the pain in this, but it was very stressful. I missed doing the work. That was number one. The amount of time I would spend on invoicing and following up and making sure that, billables were paid and all that was just a horrible time suck for me. And I didn't get to do the fun stuff anymore. The second thing for me was it was just really stressful just to make sure that I had enough money in the account to make sure that I was paying all my salaries. And that was kind of the appeal of being acquired, where they were like, you know what, you'll still run your own shop. You'll do your own thing. You'll make your own decisions. We're here as a backboard for you, but we will provide all the back end infrastructure for you. We'll give you a general counsel. We'll give you somebody who manages all of your billing and accounting. We'll do all of that behind the scenes. They made a compelling argument and I said yes.
So it also sounds like there was just a synergy here that you ended up not only not having to do some of the stuff with, the billing and all the infrastructure, but that you had a ready pool of customers that were theirs that you were able to plug right in. And it just was good for everybody. Yeah,
it was good for everybody. I mean, I had to think about it. I'm sure that there are things that I would have changed initially. There was a short period of time where we were considering rebranding my agency to be branded with the Crisis Communications Agency. And as we went through that process, we really kind of realized that it was like oil and water, and that if you're looking for a crisis communication agency, you're not necessarily going to be happy to see Donut PR on the website. So we quickly decided that we would keep the brands as is.
So now you've got crisis management and between crisis management.
Yeah.
Because when you're in business, that's what we do. We have our crisis and then we have non-crisis for a while and goes back and forth.
Yeah. And it's good not to hire.
Liz, I hear you laughing. You get what I'm saying.
We get it.
Yeah, of course I do. Sarah, as a consumer of PR and marketing services, one thing that I'm always a little confused about is whether I should go with a full service agency that does across the board PR, marketing, social, or whether I should hire someone to be more specific. I think that my answer lately has been more get someone specific to do the PR work. Sometimes it's even me. But I know that when I'm looking for marketing and PR services, they're often bundled together. And just curious to see how you structured your company and how you delineate between the marketing and the PR work.
Well, PR is essentially a branch of marketing. And if you look at most PR agencies, the definition between what they do and a traditional department does, there's a lot of gray area. The decision between going with a full service agency and are you talking about hiring somebody internally or an independent contractor?
An independent publicist, or go with an agency marketing that can do both.
Well, it really depends on what you want to do. An independent publicist is going to be able to get you earned media hits, right? But a full service agency is probably going to be able to do that, plus do influencer relations, probably do your social media handles, maybe do some digital ad buys for you, offer a creative. I mean, you can grow, but there's an expense with that, right? Yeah. It depends on your budget, and it depends on really what services that you see that you're going to need a year away.
So I've been through 4 or 5 PR firms over the years, and there's a point to where I just think it's difficult to get someone to pay attention. So my question is, if someone's got a $2-3 million company and they're looking for a PR person, can you bill enough to be worth your while and it's going to be worth it for them? I mean, when you get to 10, 20 million, okay, you can afford to spend some serious money, but where's the line to where you just can't put resources towards it? What's the smallest bill you could see sending somebody?
Oh, you mean in terms of retainer?
Yeah.
The smallest bill? Well, it really depends on the kind of firm that the kind of company that you're working with. Because I kind of look at it in three ways. There's the really easy consumer companies that it's just a smile and dial kind of PR where they have a new pair of shoes coming out. And that's very easy PR to do because it's really about numbers. And then you have the kind of companies that drank way too much of their own Kool-Aid and think that they should just be out there because they are who they are, but they have no natural news. And honestly, we charge them more because what happens is we actually have to go in and find and develop those stories with those companies because they are too close to their own work to see the interesting hooks that are going to get media interested.
Now, that's interesting because you've just described my company, except I have the opposite problem. I think I have a very interesting story to tell, and I've hired a PR firm, and she says, well, you need something like an anniversary or something. And I go, really? That's so that's what I need PR for if I'm having my 44th anniversary, not the fact that we've been around for 44 years, that I grew the largest framing business in the country, not that I've expanded into different. I mean, I've got some interesting business stories, I believe. And she wants to know, can I do an anniversary sale or something? And maybe she's right. I don't know.
All of your accomplishments then go into that article, all of your many accomplishments.
She's just looking for a hook.
I know, but she hasn't been able to figure one out. And I'm just fascinated by that. Back in the old days, 20 years ago, you'd hire the PR firm. I'm not making a blanket statement. I hired a PR firm. They come out, make a presentation, and they stick some 23-year-old on your account, and they bill you about $4,000, $3,000 a month, maybe $2,000 a month. And then when you call them, well, things take time, and then it peters out and nothing happens. And I've tried that a few times. I've had some good hits, but I certainly don't feel like I figured it out. I haven't.
There are a lot of agencies that will do that. They'll give you the dog and pony show. All of the VPs will show up to the meeting. They'll say all the things that you want to hear, and then they disappear. But there are a lot of agencies that don't do that, where their executives are still leading the charge. I'm on 99% of our client calls because I need to know what's going on with the clients and help them figure out what those stories are. Because, maybe an anniversary is not the right hook, but you can also look at data. Like, do you have any data or that you can look at internally that spell out a larger trend in society, right? That's also a way of developing a hook is by looking at the materials that you create in-house to get that recognition.
I shared this with Lauren. I wrote an article called Is Retail an Endangered Species? And I believe that I have some unique, if not unique, unusual expertise in that. I've been doing it for a long time. I own 3 retail businesses. I grew up in retail, and I've got some insights that I don't read about anywhere. And I gave it to this PR firm, and they're trying to get it put somewhere. But it's been a couple months. Nothing's happened yet. But there's some interesting retail stuff that it's not out there at all. I mean, like, for instance, I believe you're a small retailer. You ought to think about buying your own building, because that could be a defining factor, whether you're going to be in business in 10 years, whether you own your space or not. And then the whole e-commerce thing, there's another bus coming between the freight costs and the digital marketing costs. It's not, people talk about brick and mortar like it's a ball and chain. Well, you know what? Free shipping costs more than rent. So it's complicated, and you don't read about this anywhere. And I thought that's a story.
I wouldn't say not anywhere. Those issues.
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen any of those things discussed in any Tell me. I haven't read any article that talked about that rising shipping costs are putting to squeeze on these companies with doing free shipping. And many of those companies...
There have been lots of stories about how direct-to-consumer businesses are struggling because both the cost of shipping and the cost of marketing digitally have gone way up.
Yeah.
So, there has been some of that. That's not to say that you don't have a good story to tell. I'm curious, Sarah, how do you handle the situation when a client like Jay, not that he would necessarily do this, but a client who has what he or she believes is a good story to tell comes to you and says, I would like this place in the Chicago Tribune or the Wall Street Journal, or
which is exactly what I did. Yes, I did that. No, I said I want it in the Tribune.
What do you tell somebody who has that kind of expectation?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go back to them. I'm going to say, well, who buys your products, right? What is the value of you being in the Chicago Tribune? Like, are your customers reading the Chicago Tribune? Are they clicking on those articles to buy your product? Like, is it more for your own notoriety and wanting to get your name in headlines? Or is it to actually generate revenue for your company?
No, it's absolutely, my customers do read the Tribune, and I'm in a retail business. And yeah, lots of people have never heard of my company. So yes, I absolutely just want to get some publicity for the company because I think we have a fairly unique position in the marketplace. So
yeah, I mean, I think that, you have to sit down with any client and talk to them about, and honestly, if the story that I don't think is going to hit with media, I will tell them. I mean, that's part of what I do. And that's interesting with the younger people that are starting up in PR is they're always afraid to look at a client and say no. But no is a really powerful word. We know this business and we can advise you that that's going to be a waste of your time, but let's try this instead because we think it's going to be a better hit for you.
So the question is, do you tell them that on the interview before they've got a retainer, or do you tell them that after? I'm serious. Do you tell them on an interview like, Jay, I got to tell you, I don't think we're going to be able to help you if that's what you want us to do because we don't think it's going to work? Or do you get the retainer, do some research, work with the company a little bit, and then tell them?
Generally, before we get retainer, we don't dive into all of the details of what they want to get out there in the media. Like, it's more about our process and how we think about things. But we won't take on a client that we don't think that we can do good work for, because you have no idea how frustrating that is for the team to put all this energy into researching and pitching and finding the right media and doing all this work, and then nobody picks it up. It's not just damaging for the client in terms of being disappointed, but the team is just crestfallen when something doesn't hit.
And the client paid a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of suffering to go around here. It's bad for everybody. There's no question.
I remember once I worked for a company that retained a PR agency, and they really had a hard time getting press for a lot of good reasons. They weren't really selling anything interesting. They didn't have any interesting clients. And they paid this agency a lot of money, and we had so many meetings with them, and they just couldn't get anything to hit. And it was kind of understandable. But then the CEO of this company I was at was so furious and even threatened the PR agency, how dare you take all my money and you didn't get anything done. As you could tell from my voice, I was already a little bit disgruntled there. But I saw that clash and kind of told myself, you really should only get a publicist if you've got a great story and you have a great story. Maybe the agency can help pull it out of you. But if you have something that's profoundly uninteresting, don't hire a publicist.
But Sarah said it in the beginning. She said they're drinking their own Kool-Aid. They think they do have a story, and that's the problem.
Well, I actually believe that anybody has a good story. You just have to spend time with them to figure out what that story is. And, Jay, for you obviously have a lot of opinions about the retail space. Your PR work should be focused on your business, but it should be focused on building your credibility as a thought leader and profiling that, pushing out your opinions and your bylines.
Well, that's what they said. Actually, that's interesting you say that. They sent this article out and she sent it to the retail reporter, and she said they're going to eventually want to write about retail, and now you are positioned as the go-to person.
There are other ways to go about doing it is, watching the news cycle and seeing things that happen. I mean, there are retail numbers that come out, statistics and stuff that come out on a regular basis that reporters cover. Every year, the the National Retail Federation, they preview people's spending on Valentine's Day, right? They make predictions. And literally every year they put out this massive report that says, oh, people are going to spend this amount on flowers, this amount on jewelry, and this amount on chocolate. And what we do is about 2 weeks prior to that, we reach out to all of those reporters who have previously covered the topic or the National Retail Federation report or are in the retail space. And we say, hey, listen, this report's coming out in 2 weeks. We know it because it happens annually. We can serve up this expert, and this expert. If you end up covering it, please let us know. And then we follow up a week later and say, hey, just reminding you that this report comes out next week. And then the day of, when it hits the wires, we follow up. And so we say, hey, do you need to talk to our executive that can tell you all about the jewelry business and what it looks like on that side? So I'm sure your PR agency is doing all of that. One of the things that we have been very careful about doing and have done, because there's always this distrust with clients that you're actually doing the work. So we have built an agency that is super transparent with everything we do. We share our media lists. I know that's, I'm sure there are PR people listening to this saying that's not good, but.
You share your media list. That means you are telling the world who your best contacts are in the media?
We share our media list with our clients. They can see who we've reached out to, what they've said back to us, whether or not they've opened their email. And we're just super transparent with all of our pitching activities because, sometimes things don't hit and you need to prove that you actually still did the work.
You know what? Good for you. That is very, very interesting. And I would appreciate that if I was a client, that somebody that they're showing me, look, we're doing this stuff. And you were being very kind to these people. And you said, I'm sure they're doing this. I'm not sure they're doing this. I mean, we don't know if they're doing this. I've learned that people get involved with their busy client and they kind of send a letter or two or an email or two. I don't know if they're working hard on this. So that would make me feel much better if I was spending the money.
People often ask me, they're like, well, aren't you afraid the client isn't going to just take your media list and go and reach out to all those reporters themselves? And the answer is no, because most of our clients, they don't have the bandwidth to do what we do. What we do is not brain surgery by any stretch of the imagination, but it takes a lot of work. And most companies tap into us because they don't have that specialty and they need somebody who's going to do that work.
I would also argue the benefit far exceeds the risk. That's extremely powerful and beneficial for your clients. If every once in a while someone does that, it's worth it.
That also raises an interesting question, Sarah. The question I get most often as someone who used to be the target of many of these pitches is it better to hire a firm to do that outreach, or should I, as the entrepreneur CEO, do it myself?
I love that. Lauren, that was going to be my question too. I'm glad you're asking it.
It depends what stage you're in. Like if you're literally just opening your doors and starting out, there is nothing wrong with doing your own PR. And there are a lot of local journalists that love hearing from a new CEO. But there are also journalists that hate hearing from directly from companies because they don't know how to work with their deadlines. Before we even go out and start pitching something, we have put together every piece of material that a member of the media might need to cover this. We have cleared the CEO's calendar. We have put together a Dropbox full of images and other files that they might need to really do this story justice. An entrepreneur may not know to put all that stuff together. It's not hard to figure out, but there's nothing wrong with doing your own outreach initially. But as you grow, it's really probably not where you should be spending your time. You should outsource that. The ideal situation for us is when we're working with a company that has an in-house PR person who's kind of, mid-level, somebody who can keep us updated on everything that's going on, who's dedicated to managing us as the agency, and then we can do our work well. So it's not a bad idea to hire somebody onto your team to do that, because usually they're pretty good writers and you can use them for other things if you need to.
I think you brought up two critical pieces. One is, do they have better things to do with their time? In my case, my company's big enough. It's better for me to go pay someone to do it. And two, do you have the natural ability to do it? Some people are much better at it than others. There's some people that aren't good at it at all. So you have to kind of know yourself and know whether you've got that skill set. Because it might not be brain surgery, but it's also not walking down the street.
Yeah, you have to be kind of a news junkie too.
I sometimes look at it as a challenge. So for both of my main products, my package locker and my trash enclosure, I set out to get in the New York Times.
Ooh.
The first time I hired a publicist and it hit. It was great working with her. We'll always appreciate her for the work she did on that. But the second time around, I contacted that same journalist who wrote the first article about my product and, was able to pitch him. But the thing that I did was I gave him everything that he would need to write the story. Like all of the statistics about package theft, everything around the holidays, how it increases, gave them the competitors. I even gave them links to my competitors because I knew this journalist often will write a product profile about something, whether it be vases or pianos or package lockers in this case. So I gave him all of the information about 3 of my competitors, and I made it really easy for him to write that story. But that was something where I really thought it through. If I were him, what would I want? And that's what I put in my pitch, and it worked. Like, it worked fast too. I didn't even need to follow up.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you had a gut instinct. You want to serve it up on a platter for them because reporters don't have the bandwidth to do the whole back and forth thing, right? They have these crazy deadlines. A lot of them also have to do social media as well to highlight their stories. Like some reporters are doing 2-3 different stories every day. So it's like the more that you can give them up front, the more likely your story is going to resonate with them. And if you can get the absolute essence of why they should care in that first 2 sentences, you've upped your chances too. But there are resources out there that a lot of startups use. I'm sure you all heard of Help a Reporter Out, Haro. That is a aggregator for reporter requests. So reporters will put, hey, I'm looking for someone to talk about new sports drinks. Hey, I'm looking for somebody, an expert on Botox. And they'll put that out and it gets pushed out via email 3 times a day. And you can respond to any of them. If you have an expert or somebody who can talk to whatever they're looking for, you can pitch it. And it's a great way to kind of step into that in terms of reactive pitching.
Okay, so tell us, so there's no opinion in this, what is the lowest retainer you have charged someone in the last couple of years?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I have a pro bono account right now. And so that's free.
Okay, how do you get on that program? That sounds very good.
You were my college roommate. How about that?
Oh, all right. So that's one person. All right. What about for the rest of the world?
So that hotel that I started out with, that very first hotel in Ketchum, Idaho, they pay us a very small retainer because, well, we love working for them. They're a fun client and they have been with us from the beginning. You know, hospitality has struggled over the last couple of years, but they still need someone to help get them out there in terms of, mentions in the media. And I can't say no to them.
Okay, so you're charging them
$500 a month.
Wow. Okay.
But they're a legacy client.
I take that as a very unusual situation.
Someone
shows up tomorrow that, let's say they own a picture framing company and they own a furniture store, and they used to write the small business blog for the New York Times for 5 years, and he thinks he's got a story to tell. What do you think? And he's extremely fun to be with, and everybody loves him. Most people love him. 2% hate him. What do you think you're going to charge that guy or woman?
Well, we'd have to look into it. I mean, if they have a good story and they have a consistent news, it depends. Are we going to have to be pulling teeth to get stories out of them?
No. No, this person's would just give you 10 stories off the top of their head.
I feel like you're asking for somebody you know.
I just, it's a friend of mine. I'm asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
Just give us a range. Just give us a range. Is it $5,000? 5 to 10?
Well, yeah, it's 5 to 10, really. You know, that's the
what
kind
I
of
would have thought.
that's the range. I mean, once you get above 10, you're talking about strategy and creative and social media, and you're adding all these add-ons.
Okay, that's good to know.
But yeah, 5 to 10 is, you should be expecting to pay 5 to 10 for regular PR for most companies. But the add-ons can really increase that. Like if you look at me and say, well, we also want to do influencer relations. I'm going to say, well, we're going to charge you a couple $1,000s more for that.
What do you mean by influencer relations, Sarah?
Oh, meaning like, you know, you want your product to be featured by some TikTok creator. That's influencer relations.
That's a whole nother animal, though.
It is, but it's a super lucrative animal.
I got it, but it's different than just, I can tell you, 20, 30 years ago, I was at a...
Wait, Jay, can I stop you for a second? That TikTok influencer that Sarah's talking about might be a lot more valuable to your Jason Home business than getting a story in the Chicago Tribune.
100%.
Yeah.
I agree with Lauren.
I think we're doing that.
TikTok and Instagram Reels, video is king now. Like the more that you can get into that content feed, the better off you're going to be. Especially with newer customers. Newer customers are not reading. Let's just put it that way. They're watching and listening.
Okay, good to know. Can I tell you my PR story from 30 years ago?
I'd love to hear it.
I'm at a business thing. I'm on a board there, and it's a business group, and I meet this PR person. And I know this is hard to believe, but 30 years ago, I was more hyper than I am today, way more. So I'm telling her about my business, and she says, well, the first thing someone needs to do for you is calm you down. And I said to myself, I just had a PR person tell me to calm down. That didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I'm happy to report that 30 years later, I have a pretty sizable company and never heard her name again.
When I was working in broadcast, the first job I got in TV was for a station on Long Island, New York. And the news director looked at me and he said, I hired you despite your voice.
Nice.
Oh, no.
But the very next job I got, the news director looked at me and said, I hired you because of your voice.
Right.
So it really depends. You know, it's one person's opinion.
Sarah, how has it worked out being owned? Do they leave you alone as they promised?
Yes, they do. Probably too much. No, but like I have the COO of that company is really my backboard for me figuring out whether or not my idea is dumb. And so, or whether or not I should invest money in something. And they're super supportive. I think I won the lottery on this one.
Has the business been growing? Do you expect to grow this year?
So it's been a stressful year, and I made some mistakes last year and had some retainers end at the end of the year. So I started out in the negative.
Sarah, what does it mean to have a retainer end in the negative?
No. The retainers, like the contracts ended in December.
She lost more business than she gained for the new year, right?
Well, yeah. So I was a little bit in the red in January. And I had to really step back and be like, okay, what kind of clients that I take on that put me in this place where I'm not flush with cash in January. And, you know, part of it was just learning not to have contracts end all at the same time. Like making sure that when I put together a contract, I'm working with a client and I say, okay, well, this is a pretty big client and I'm going to have to hire 2 people to make sure I'm servicing them. I don't want to have another similar sized client have the same end date on their contract, because all of a sudden I'm going to have, 2 kind of holes to fill if they don't renew.
Well, how do you manage that? I mean, if a client comes along and the timing just happens to coincide, you're not going to turn one of them away. What's the alternative?
I haven't figured, I'm working on that.
Well, the alternative is to work really hard during the months that you don't have retainers coming up to try to find some new clients to fill in those gaps. It's like retail. You want to fill in when it's slower. And if a lot of your stuff comes up December 31st, maybe in June, you should put extra energy into finding some new clients because maybe you don't have any contracts ending in June. So that makes sense.
I've kind of learned along the way that I have to do new biz like 365 days a year. It can't just be when I'm like seeing a cliff.
That's interesting you say that because I've figured out, at least in my business, that I'm going to lose 15% of the business every single year between people just dying or moving or running out of the need for picture framing in my picture frame business, or just they found somewhere else they like. You need to have new business coming in all the time. And these companies that think that, they moved to some weird location, well, everyone knows who we are. That could be a fatal mistake. And in your business, you're not in a retail thing where you've got a storefront. Like in my business, between the internet and my storefront and the social media and referrals, we're always getting new customers in. In your business, though, it's not as natural.
What is your best marketing, Sarah? How do you get new business?
Well, I was going to ask Jay, and actually I asked Liz, how did you find your agency and your PR person? How did you find those people?
The one I've used lately, the marketing person I hired who has worked out beautifully. She does a lot of stuff with the furniture store and the frame business. She worked with them before and she's friends with them and they do a nice job, but I'm afraid that they're a little too busy at the moment. And I'm open to, maybe I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid, but I still believe I've got an interesting story to tell because Lauren, you obviously read a lot more than I do. I don't know where you're reading all these stories. I'm not reading a lot of stories about existing retailers and how they're faring.
There's a great daily email newsletter, Jay.
Is there?
Called the 21 Hats Morning Report. You might want to check that out.
I still don't think there's a lot of news out there about talking about someone who's just navigating it.
But you got your agency through referral, right?
Yeah, it's her. Yeah.
Liz, how did you get yours?
Mine was through referral. So a very trusted friend who also has a couple of businesses worked with the current person I'm working with on both social, PR, and that kind of marketing blended together. But she's not an employee. She works kind of more on a campaign basis, and I do 4 campaigns a year. And she's just a very unique find. But part of the reason I like to work individually is in the past, both as my own business owner as well as in corporate, I also did not like that long hierarchy between the person that sold the business and the person that executes the work. I found in almost every case that line or that string is way too long. So because I also have an MBA in marketing, I don't want to pay for that chain. I like working directly with people to give them that direction, and I don't want to pay other people to do that. If there comes a point, and I do think it will happen, where I need to completely, hire someone else to be my CMO, we'll see if we want to do more in-house and build up the team or if we want to do an outsourced, more of a marketing team. But for now, I like working with individuals.
Sarah, you said something that is very USP, unique selling proposition. You pay for accounting, you get your books done. You pay for a lawyer, you're going to court. You pay a PR firm, the money just goes out, and then you just sit around hoping that something happens. You're actually giving them something, a report that tells you here's all the I think that's great. And I've probably used 4 PR firms. No one's done anything like that. I think that is a tremendous value to the client, and it puts you on the same team a little bit. Like, okay, I can see you put the effort in. It didn't work. All right, it doesn't always work. Versus, you just got to wait a while. I've got some contacts I'm working on. Yeah, really? I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not.
Yeah, but you had, Lauren, I think you had asked me how I get new business, right?
Yep.
And I think Jay and Liz answered the question for you, where it's very rare that I get somebody coming to me out of the blue. It's always through conversations and referrals and people that know.
Are you doing any actual marketing?
Like, for example, give me an example.
Digital marketing.
Are you doing PR for yourself? That's my question. I mean, have you done a story about your own PR story? Because, again, I haven't read a whole lot of articles about PR people. I don't know if I ever have read one.
I do contributed pieces talking about PR as I can. PR in general doesn't do marketing. Like, you're not going to see an ad for Edelman or or Flashman Hillard or, any of these.
Really? I'd never thought of that.
Not going to see that show up in your feed. That's not the way PR does it. And I don't know why. Maybe we should. Maybe you guys will convince me I should do that.
I would think there's a niche out there. If there's plenty of Liz's and Jay's out there that think about, should I hire a PR firm? And if I saw an article in somewhere that talked about what we're talking about right now, I would find that really compelling and I would call you. I think you need to hire a PR firm.
You think I need a PR? Well, yeah, I have to say that it's easier to do PR for other people than for my company and myself, because it's not natural for me to push my own self. But, we do the contributed stuff. I'm trying to go to more conferences just to meet people in person after 2 years, which is nice. But yeah, I haven't figured out what that secret sauce is in terms of creating a consistent new biz funnel.
Talk about Haro a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Haro is help a reporter out, and you can easily search it. And there's 2 ways to sign up. You can sign up as a journalist, where you want to place your requests for, hey, I'm looking to talk to somebody who can tell me about the ins and outs of predict what's going to happen with the retail space in 2022. Or you can sign up as a contributor for some where you can respond to requests from reporters. And you literally get an email morning, noon, and night of just crazy amounts of requests from reporters. This is not to say every request is going to be worth your time. There are small blogs that use it. There are corporate content companies that use it to fill out their client blogs. But every once in a while, you get somebody from the Chicago Tribune that's looking for an expert on X, Y, and Z, and have used Haro to do their outreach. There are a lot of other tools like that. There's something called ProfNet that Cision does. And there are a couple other resources. A lot of reporters, especially on the lifestyle side, are using Substack to do their call outs.
Excellent answer. Very valuable. Thank you.
It's great. I used Haro in the past, and I found it overwhelming how many returns I got. But I think that if there's a way to set up a filter, I would definitely sign up for that again.
You can go in and you can say, I only want to get the requests for business, or I only want to get the requests for tech. And it lets you filter that out a little bit.
Or you can have somebody else review it. This ran longer than I expected. I had all kinds of other things I was going to ask you, but I'm afraid we're out of time. Sarah, thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Sarah, I want to give you the highest award we give out on 21 Hats, which is the You're Not Full of Shit certification. Excellent.
And you swore. I love it.
Jay, where's my certification?
Yours is a special one that's coming the next time we were together. But you need to wait for it.
Okay,
it's going to be beautiful.
Will it be framed?
It will be framed in a beautiful Italian hand-leafed frame with a 8-ply mat.
Wow, Liz.
I feel really special. Does Sarah get that as well?
Look for a space on your wall. Yes, everyone's getting one. Everyone gets an award.
My thanks to Jay Goltz, Liz Picarazzi, and Sarah Segal. Thanks for sharing, guys. Wait. Don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN@21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.